They say blood is thicker than water, but what happens when your own blood tries to wash you away like you're nothing? When my Aunt Karen saw me in what she thought was a janitor's uniform, she grabbed my arm and hissed, "Get in the kitchen before our investors see you." I obeyed. But 20 minutes later, the most powerful CEO in the room walked past everyone, found me in that kitchen, and dropped a bombshell that changed everything. I'm Myla Underwood, 35 years old, and this is the story of how my family's attempt to hide their failure relative backfired in the most spectacular way possible. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. 5 years ago, I was living what everyone called the American dream. At 30, I was the CEO of TechVision, a software startup I'd built from my garage into a company valued at $10 million. We had 40 employees, offices in downtown Seattle, and contracts with 3 Fortune 500 companies. My family couldn't have been prouder. Aunt Karen would bring her business friends to our office just to show off. "This is my brilliant niece," she'd say, her arm around me like I was her own daughter. MIT graduate, youngest CEO in our family's history. We always knew she was special. Uncle Robert would joke at family dinners about how I'd hire him when he retired. "Save me a spot on your board of directors," he'd laugh, raising his wine glass. The whole family would toast to my success, to the Mitchell Underwood legacy of excellence. My younger sister Emma was still in medical school then, and I was paying her tuition. Dad had just retired from his teaching position, finally able to relax knowing both his daughters were thriving. Life was perfect, or so it seemed. I remember the last party before everything crashed. Aunt Karen's 60th birthday at the country club. She introduced me to everyone as the future of our family. She even had me give a speech about entrepreneurship and following your dreams. 200 guests applauded when I talked about taking risks and believing in yourself. If only I'd known that within 6 months, those same people would cross the street to avoid me. That Aunt Karen would tell those same friends, "We don't talk about her anymore." That my success story would become their cautionary tale about flying too close to the sun. The collapse happened fast. My business partner, someone I'd trusted for 3 years, had been cooking the books. While I was focused on product development and client relationships, he'd been taking out loans against the company, funneling money to offshore accounts. By the time our CFO discovered the fraud, we were $8 million in debt with no way to recover. The FBI got involved. Lawyers circled like vultures. Within 3 weeks, TechVision was dead, and I was personally liable for $2 million in damages because of how we'd structured the partnership. Everything I owned, my condo, my car, my savings, gone. The first family member I told was Aunt Karen. I'll never forget sitting in her pristine living room, shaking as I explained what happened. She stood up mid-sentence, walked to her bar, and poured herself a scotch. "I knew it," she said, not even looking at me. "Robert warned me you were too young, too naive, but I defended you. Karen, I just need some time to figure things out." "No." She turned around, her face cold. "You've embarrassed this family enough. Do you know how many people I told about you? How many investments I encouraged based on your success?" The family meeting that weekend was brutal. Uncle Robert actually used the word toxic to describe my presence. Cousins who'd asked for business advice months earlier now whispered behind their hands. My aunt's friend Margaret, who'd once called me inspiring, literally turned her back when I walked in. Only Dad and Emma stood by me. But even their support couldn't soften the blow when Aunt Karen announced to everyone, "As far as I'm concerned, she's no longer welcome at family business events. We can't afford any more embarrassment." Rock bottom has a way of showing you who you really are. With nothing left but debt and humiliation, I took 3 jobs. Morning shift at a warehouse, afternoon tutoring business students online, nights doing freelance coding. 18-hour days became my normal. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford, but every night from midnight to 2 a.m., I studied. Market trends, investment strategies, venture capital structures. I analyzed why TechVision failed, dissecting every decision like a surgeon learning from a fatal mistake. Failure, I realized, was just expensive education. 6 months into this grinding routine, something unexpected happened. One of my coding clients, an elderly man named William Chen, noticed the depth of my business knowledge during our sessions. "You're not just a programmer," he said one evening. "You understand markets in a way most people don't." William, it turned out, had sold his logistics company for $40 million a decade ago. He'd been looking for someone to help manage a small investment fund, just $5 million to start. "I don't care about your past," he said. "I care about your hunger. And kid, you're starving for redemption." He offered me a deal. Manage his fund for 1 year. If I could deliver even 20% returns, he'd help me start something bigger. If I failed, we'd part ways quietly. I didn't tell anyone. Not Dad, not Emma, certainly not the extended family who'd written me off. I legally changed my business name to M. Wood, created a Delaware LLC with layers of privacy protection, and went to work. That first year, I turned William's $5 million into $8 million, a 60% return. He was impressed, but I was just getting started. The hunger he'd seen? It was becoming something else, something focused, something powerful. William kept his promise. With his backing and connections, Apex Capital was born, officially registered under a web of holding companies that kept my name invisible. William insisted on this structure. "Your family hurt you when you were vulnerable," he said. "Don't give them the chance to sabotage your comeback." The first year was remarkable. We started with $20 million, William's investment plus a few silent partners he'd brought in. I focused on distressed companies with good bones but poor management. Buy, restructure, sell. Simple formula, explosive results. That $20 million became $60 million within 12 months. By year 2, major players started noticing Apex Capital. Who was behind these brilliant acquisitions? The financial press speculated endlessly. Some thought it was a Chinese consortium. Others suspected Silicon Valley veterans. Nobody guessed it was the failed entrepreneur who'd been publicly humiliated by her own family. We expanded strategically: manufacturing, logistics, tech services, always companies others overlooked. I developed a signature move, buying the suppliers and service providers of larger corporations, then leveraging those relationships for bigger deals. It was chess, not checkers. One acquisition stood out in my planning: Mitchell Industries, my Uncle Robert's company. They didn't know it yet, but they were struggling. Their financials looked good on paper, but I recognized the pattern: over-leveraged expansion, aging leadership, declining innovation. Classic signs of a company ripe for takeover. I started buying shares quietly, always under 5% to avoid disclosure requirements. Shell companies, investment trusts, foreign entities, each taking small positions that added up to significant control. Within 18 months, Apex Capital controlled 51% of Mitchell Industries through various holdings. The irony was delicious. The family who'd banished me for failure now depended on someone they'd never suspect for their survival. Hiding in plain sight became my specialty. When Apex Capital acquired Clean Tech Services, a commercial cleaning company with contracts across Seattle's business district, everyone thought it was just another portfolio addition. Nobody suspected it would become my perfect cover. Clean Tech serviced the buildings where Mitchell Industries and their partners operated. I could walk through their offices, attend their events as invisible staff, and gather intelligence without anyone suspecting. The uniform that would later horrify Aunt Karen was actually my all-access pass to their world. I'd sometimes clean conference rooms right after their board meetings, seeing forgotten notes, hearing unguarded conversations. That's how I learned Robert was desperately seeking new investors, that Karen was pushing him to make risky decisions to impress her society friends who'd invested their money. The psychological aspect fascinated me. The same executives who once sought my advice now looked right through me when I wore that uniform. I wasn't a person to them, just part of the furniture. It was a masterclass in how power blinds people to reality. William found my strategy amusing. "You're like a method actor," he said during one of our monthly reviews, living the role to understand the target. 3 weeks ago, the family reunion invitation arrived at Dad's house. The annual Mitchell family gathering, always held somewhere impressive to maintain their image. This year, the Ritz-Carlton downtown. Dad forwarded it to me with a simple note. "They included you. Mistake or olive branch?" I stared at that invitation for hours. 5 years of being invisible, of building an empire they couldn't see. Maybe it was time to step out of the shadows. But not as the failure begging for acceptance, as something they'd never expect. The clean tech uniform hanging in my office seemed to smile at me. Perfect. "You're really going?" Emma sat across from me at our favorite coffee shop, her medical residency badge still clipped to her scrubs. She was the only family member I'd seen regularly these past 5 years, meeting in secret like conspirators. "They invited me," I said, though we both knew it was probably an oversight or Dad's doing. "Myla, they made their position clear. You don't need them anymore." She didn't know about Apex Capital, but she knew I was doing better. The fact that I'd paid off her student loans last year told her enough. "It's not about needing them," I said, fingering the clean tech uniform in my bag. "It's about closing a chapter." Emma frowned. "Why the uniform, though? You could wear something nice, show them you've recovered." I couldn't explain that showing up successful would just invite questions I wasn't ready to answer. The uniform was my armor. It would make them dismiss me, underestimate me, exactly as planned. 3 days before the reunion, Marcus Sterling called my Apex line directly. "Ms. Wood, I hear you'll be at the Mitchell family gathering." My blood chilled. "How did you—" "William Smith is an old friend. He thought we should meet. Officially, I mean." His tone was warm, conspiratorial even. "I understand you have interesting plans for the evening." Marcus Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries, Mitchell's biggest client. If he knew who I was— "What do you want?" "To help. Robert Mitchell has been insufferable lately, acting like he owns my company because we're partners. A little humility would do him good." "And you'd help me why?" "Because I believe in justice, and because Apex Capital just made me an offer I couldn't refuse for my company. See you Saturday, boss." The pieces were falling into place perfectly. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom was exactly what I'd expected. Crystal chandeliers, gold accents, and enough flowers to stock a botanical garden. The Mitchell family always did everything to excess, especially when they had an audience to impress. I arrived at 7 p.m. sharp, walking through the service entrance out of habit. My clean tech uniform was pressed perfectly, my hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. I looked exactly like what they'd expect. A working-class nobody who'd never recovered from failure. The ballroom buzzed with 200 guests, investors, business partners, society friends. I recognized half of them from my research, the other half from the old days when they'd courted my success. A banner read, "Mitchell Family Legacy, 50 Years of Excellence." I entered through the main doors, my sneakers silent on the marble floor. It took exactly 12 seconds for the first person to notice me. Cousin Patricia's champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips. She elbowed her husband, who turned and stared. The whispers started like ripples in a pond. "Is that Myla? What is she wearing? Oh my God, she actually came." I kept walking, my face neutral, looking for Dad. He stood near the bar with Emma, both in elegant formal wear. Emma saw me first, her eyes widening at my uniform. Dad just looked sad. "Honey," he said quietly when I reached them, "you didn't have to—" "Hi, Dad," I said, hugging him. "It's good to see you." Across the room, Aunt Karen held court with a group of investors, her silver dress sparkling as she gestured dramatically about something. She hadn't seen me yet, but the crowd's energy had shifted, people stealing glances, whispering behind manicured hands. The show was about to begin. Uncle Robert spotted me first. His face went through a spectacular range of emotions: surprise, confusion, then settling on disgust. He excused himself from his conversation with two men in Armani suits and walked over, his jaw tight. "What are you doing here?" His voice was low, controlled, but I could hear the anger underneath. "I was invited, Uncle Robert," I said calmly. "Family reunion, remember? In that?" He gestured at my uniform like it was contaminated. "Are you actively trying to humiliate us?" Before I could answer, Aunt Karen's laugh cut through the room. She was still performing for her audience, oblivious to the drama unfolding 20 feet away. But Margaret, her friend, had noticed me. She whispered urgently in Karen's ear. Karen turned slowly, like a horror movie villain. Her perfectly Botoxed face couldn't quite hide her shock. She handed her champagne to Margaret and walked over, her heels clicking ominously on the marble. "Myla." My name came out like she'd bitten into something rotten. "What? What is this?" "Hello, Aunt Karen. You look lovely tonight." "Don't." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Don't you dare make small talk. What are you wearing? Did you come here straight from work?" A small crowd was forming, pretending not to watch while obviously watching. I recognized several Mitchell Industries board members, two major investors, and three society reporters Karen had undoubtedly invited herself. "Yes," I said simply. "I came from work." Karen's face flushed beneath her foundation. "You're doing this on purpose. You're trying to embarrass us in front of everyone." "I'm just existing, Aunt Karen. If that embarrasses you, perhaps you should examine why." The slap never came, but I could see her hand twitch. Karen grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging in through the uniform fabric. "Come with me, now!" She dragged me towards the service area, away from the main ballroom. Several guests turned to watch, their expressions a mix of curiosity and secondhand embarrassment. I didn't resist. This was exactly what I'd expected. Once we were partially hidden by a decorative partition, she spun on me. "How dare you show up like this? Do you have any idea who's here tonight?" "Your investors, I assume?" "The Hendersons are here. The Chens. Marcus Sterling himself is coming." Her voice was a furious whisper. "These are people who control hundreds of millions in capital, and you show up dressed like, like someone who works for a living?" Her face went purple. "Get in the kitchen, right now." "Excuse me?" "You heard me." She pointed toward the service doors. "If you insist on being here, you'll stay where nobody can see you. I won't have you destroying what Robert and I have built." "You're seriously ordering me to hide in the kitchen?" "Yes, and if you have any respect left for this family, you'll stay there until the party's over." She glanced back at the crowd. "I'll tell people you're helping with the catering or something. Just stay out of sight." I looked at her for a long moment. The woman who'd once called me the future of our family now couldn't stand the sight of me. "All right, Aunt Karen. I'll go to the kitchen." Relief flooded her face. "Good. And Myla, don't come to these events anymore. You don't fit." As I walked toward the kitchen, I caught Marcus Sterling entering the ballroom. His eyes met mine briefly, and he gave an almost imperceptible nod. The kitchen was a chaos of stainless steel and controlled panic. Servers rushed past with trays while chefs barked orders in 3 languages. I found a quiet corner near the prep station and leaned against the wall, invisible among the actual workers. A young server, maybe 20, noticed my clean tech uniform. "You're not supposed to be back here. This is a private event." "Mrs. Mitchell sent me here," I said. "Family business." She looked confused but shrugged and went back to loading champagne glasses. Family business. 5 years ago, I'd been giving the keynote toast at events like this. Now I was hidden away like a shameful secret. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Sterling. "In position. Where are you?" "Kitchen, as planned," I replied. "Give me 5 minutes." I thought about the last 5 years, the 18-hour days, the careful planning, the empire built in shadows, all leading to this moment, in this kitchen, surrounded by strangers who had no idea they were standing next to one of Seattle's most powerful investors. William had asked me once what I wanted from all this. Money? Power? Revenge? The truth was simpler and more complex. I wanted them to see me, really see me, not as the failure they'd created in their minds, but as who I actually was. Another text, this time from my CFO at Apex. Sterling acquisition papers ready, awaiting your signal. $50 million. That's what we were paying for Sterling Industries. Marcus would remain CEO, but Apex Capital, I, would own everything. And through Sterling's partnership agreements, we'd have unprecedented control over Mitchell Industries. The kitchen door swung open. Marcus Sterling walked in, his presence commanding even in this chaos. Every staff member turned to look. "Ms. Underwood," he said clearly, "we need to talk." Marcus Sterling looked like he'd stepped out of a Fortune magazine cover. Silver hair, perfectly tailored tuxedo, an air of authority that made the kitchen staff automatically step back. He walked straight to me, ignoring their stares. "Myla," he said warmly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I've been looking for you." The young server who'd questioned me earlier nearly dropped her tray. "You know her?" Marcus smiled. "Know her? Ms. Underwood and I have business together." He turned to me, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Though I didn't expect to find you in the kitchen." "Aunt Karen thought it would be best if I stayed out of sight," I said evenly. "Apparently, my uniform doesn't match the party's aesthetic." His face darkened. "She sent you here? To hide?" Her exact words were, "Stay where nobody can see you." Marcus pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. "Well, that's about to change." He looked up at the kitchen staff, who were pretending to work while obviously eavesdropping. "Could you all give us a moment, please?" They scattered like startled birds. When we were alone, Marcus pulled out a leather folder from his jacket. "The papers are all signed. As of 10 minutes ago, Sterling Industries officially belongs to Apex Capital. Congratulations, boss." Boss. He said it casually, but the word hung in the air like a challenge to everything happening in the ballroom. "They still don't know, do they?" he asked. "Your family has no idea who you really are. They see what they want to see, a failure in a janitor's uniform. And that's exactly why this is going to be so perfect," he grinned. "Ready to show them who really has the power here?" "How do you want to play this?" Marcus asked, leaning against the prep counter like we were discussing dinner plans instead of corporate destruction. "Subtly at first," I said. "Let them dig themselves deeper." He chuckled. "Robert's been insufferable lately. Last week, he actually told me I should be grateful for his business. Grateful. Like Sterling Industries needs Mitchell's measly contracts." "They represent 12% of your revenue," I noted. "Exactly. Pocket change. But to hear Robert tell it, he's keeping us afloat." Marcus opened the leather folder, revealing the acquisition documents. $50 million. That's what you paid for my company. Want to know the beautiful irony? I waited. 30 million of that came from the systematic shorting of Mitchell Industries stock over the past year. You've been using their own market weakness to buy the power to destroy them. I hadn't told him that part. Marcus was sharper than I'd given him credit for. "You've done your homework. I like to know who I'm working for. And Myla, what you've built with Apex, it's brilliant. The shell companies, the strategic acquisitions, the way you've been circling Mitchell Industries like a shark. It's artwork." "It's justice," I corrected. "That too." He glanced toward the door. "Your aunt will probably come looking for me soon. I'm supposed to give a speech about our wonderful partnership with Mitchell Industries." "Then we should give her what she wants," I said. "Go back out there. Give your speech. But when you're done, I bring up the acquisition? No. You come back here to the kitchen. Let them see where your priorities are." Marcus's grin was wolfish. "You want them to come to you, make them see you've been in control all along." Exactly. We'd been talking for maybe 3 minutes when the kitchen door burst open. Aunt Karen stood there, slightly out of breath, her perfect composure cracking at the edges. "Mr. Sterling, there you are. Everyone's waiting for your speech about our partnership." She froze when she saw him standing next to me, close enough to suggest familiarity. Her eyes darted between us, calculating, confused. "Mrs. Mitchell," Marcus said coolly, "I was just having an important discussion with Ms. Underwood." "With her?" Karen's voice pitched higher. "What could you possibly need to discuss with—" She caught herself, aware that several kitchen staff were watching. The young server from earlier had her phone out, discreetly recording. "Mr. Sterling, surely whatever this is can wait. The investors are specifically here to hear about Sterling Industries' continued partnership with Mitchell." "Are they?" Marcus stepped slightly closer to me. "How interesting. Because I'm here for something entirely different." Karen's smile became forced, brittle. "I don't understand." "This person," Marcus gestured to me, emphasizing the word Karen had used earlier, "is exactly who I need to speak with right now. In fact, she's the most important person at this entire event." The kitchen had gone completely silent. Even the dishwasher had stopped running. Karen's face cycled through emotions: confusion, anger, then a dawning fear. "That's impossible. She's nobody. She cleans buildings." "Mrs. Mitchell." Marcus's voice could have frozen water. "I don't appreciate you speaking about Ms. Underwood that way, especially considering—" He let it hang. Karen took a step forward, her heel catching slightly on the rubber floor mat. "Considering what?" "Considering she's the person I answer to now." The serving tray the young woman was holding clattered to the floor. Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "What did you just say?" Karen's voice was barely a whisper. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her something on the screen. "The acquisition was finalized tonight. Sterling Industries now belongs to Apex Capital, and Ms. Underwood needs to be part of any discussion about our future partnerships." But she's—" Karen gestured helplessly at my uniform. "She's wearing— She cleans. She's wearing the uniform of Clean Tech Services, a company owned by Apex Capital," Marcus said patiently, like explaining to a child. "One of many companies under the Apex umbrella." Robert appeared in the doorway, his face red. "Karen, what the hell is taking so long? We have 200 people." He stopped, taking in the scene: his wife's shocked face, Marcus standing beside me, the kitchen staff filming everything. "Robert, perfect timing," Marcus said cheerfully. "I was just explaining to your wife that I need Ms. Underwood present for any business discussions tonight." "Myla?" Robert looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Why would you need her? She's nobody. She failed. She cleans toilets for a living." "Actually," I said, speaking for the first time since they'd arrived, "I own the company that cleans your toilets, Robert, along with several others you might recognize." Marcus held up the folder. "Should we tell them everything now, or would you prefer to do this in front of your guests?" Karen grabbed Robert's arm. "This is some kind of joke. It has to be." "The only joke," Marcus said, "is that you sent the person who controls your company's future to hide in the kitchen because you were embarrassed by her uniform." The young server had moved closer, her phone still recording. This would be on social media within minutes. The Mitchell family's humiliation, documented in real time. "We're going back to the ballroom," Marcus announced. "All of us." "No!" Karen's voice was sharp with panic. "She can't. Not dressed like that. What will people think?" "They'll think what they want to think," I said, stepping forward. "They always do." Robert blocked the doorway. "Myla, please, whatever game you're playing, don't do this. Not tonight, not in front of everyone." "Game?" I met his eyes steadily. "You mean like the game you played 5 years ago when you called me toxic? When you told everyone I was a failure who'd never amount to anything?" "That was different. You had failed. Your company collapsed. And I rebuilt. But you never bothered to look, did you? Too busy assuming I was beneath you." Marcus moved toward the door. "We're wasting time. There are announcements to make." Karen was practically hyperventilating. "Please, Mr. Sterling, can't we discuss this privately? Work out whatever this is without making a scene?" "A scene?" Marcus laughed. Mrs. Mitchell, you created the scene when you banished your own family member to the kitchen. Now you're concerned about appearances? The kitchen door opened again. Emma peered in, eyes wide. What's going on? Half the party is wondering where everyone went. Emma, dear, Karen said desperately, talk to your sister. Make her see reason. Emma looked at me in my uniform, at Marcus standing beside me like a bodyguard, at our aunt's panicked face. A slow smile spread across her face. I think Myla knows exactly what she's doing. We're going out there, I said quietly. All of us. Together. And you're going to smile and act like everything is normal, Karen. Because if you make a scene trying to stop me, I guarantee you'll regret it. Robert's business instincts finally kicked in. He straightened his tie, put on his CEO face, and tried to take control. Marcus, let me handle this. This is clearly a family matter that's gotten out of hand. Handle it? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Like you handled the Newport merger? Or the Singapore expansion that lost 40%? Robert's face went white. Those were closely guarded failures, known only to board members and major investors. How do you— Due diligence, Robert. Something Apex Capital takes very seriously before acquiring controlling interests. Controlling interests in what? Robert's voice cracked slightly. I stepped forward. Mitchell Industries, Robert. Apex owns 51% through various holdings, has for 6 months now. The words hit him like a physical blow. He actually staggered back a step. That's impossible. I would know. The board would know. Shell companies, investment trusts, foreign entities, I listed calmly. All under 5% individually to avoid disclosure, but collectively? We own you. Karen made a sound like a wounded animal. You've been planning this. All this time. Mr. Sterling, Robert tried again, desperation creeping in. Surely we can discuss this rationally. Whatever Myla has told you, whatever she's promised. Marcus actually laughed. What she's told me? Robert, she owns my company. As of tonight, I work for her. The kitchen staff wasn't even pretending to work anymore. Everyone was watching, phones out, capturing the moment when Robert Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Industries, realized he'd been outmaneuvered by the niece he'd thrown away. This is illegal, he said weakly. Corporate espionage, fraud. Everything was done completely legally, I said. I have the best lawyers money can buy. The same ones, incidentally, who used to work for you before Apex hired them away. Marcus had heard enough. He walked past Robert like he wasn't there, pushing through the kitchen doors into the ballroom. We followed. Me still in my clean-tech uniform, Karen and Robert looking like they were heading to an execution, Emma barely suppressing her grin. The ballroom fell silent as we entered. 200 pairs of eyes tracked our strange procession. Marcus walked straight to the microphone on the small stage, tapping it once. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay. I have an important announcement. The crowd leaned in. Several Mitchell Industries board members exchanged worried glances. The Hendersons, major investors, moved closer to the stage. As of 8 p.m. tonight, Sterling Industries has been acquired by Apex Capital for $50 million. Gasps rippled through the room. Phones appeared, people frantically Googling Apex Capital. The financial reporters Karen had invited scrambled for their recorders. This acquisition, Marcus continued, represents a new chapter for Sterling Industries. We'll be restructuring our partnerships, reevaluating our contracts, and making some significant changes to how we do business. What about Mitchell Industries? Someone called out. Your partnership with them? Marcus smiled. That's an excellent question. Perhaps we should ask the person who'll be making those decisions. He turned, looking directly at me. Every eye in the room followed his gaze, taking in my uniform, my calm expression, the way Karen and Robert stood frozen beside me like deer in headlights. But first, Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly, I need to retrieve someone from the kitchen. You see, Mrs. Mitchell thought it best to hide certain family members from your view tonight. She was concerned about appearances. The crowd murmured, confused, scandalized. This wasn't going according to the script of their usual society gatherings. I know what you're thinking. How could a family treat their own blood this way? If you've ever been judged by your appearance or dismissed because of a failure, you know exactly how this feels. Drop a comment and share your story. And if you want to see how this revelation unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Now let's return to that ballroom where everything was about to change. Marcus reached into his leather folder and pulled out a thick document, holding it up for everyone to see. This is the acquisition agreement. $50 million. But here's what makes it interesting. Apex Capital isn't just buying Sterling Industries. He paused, letting the tension build. I watched Karen's face drain of all color as she began to piece it together. Apex Capital, as some of you may have discovered in your frantic Googling, owns controlling interests in 15 companies in the Pacific Northwest, including Clean Tech Services, Evergreen Logistics, Phoenix Development, and, he smiled, 51% of Mitchell Industries. The room exploded. Board members shouted questions. Investors demanded explanations. Robert actually had to grip a chair to stay upright. Who owns Apex Capital? Henderson, one of the major investors, demanded. Who's behind all this? Marcus gestured to me. Why don't you ask her yourself? Her? Henderson looked at me dismissively. The janitor? I stepped forward, reaching into my pocket. The simple gesture made several people step back, as if I might pull out something dangerous. Instead, I withdrew a plain black card, the executive access badge for Apex Capital's headquarters, the kind only 3 people in the company possessed. Not a janitor, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room. The founder, CEO, and majority shareholder of Apex Capital. I held up the badge, its holographic seal catching the chandelier light. This uniform? It belongs to one of my companies, the same company that's been servicing your offices, listening to your conversations, learning your weaknesses. Margaret, Karen's friend, dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the marble floor, the sound echoing in the silence. Myla? She whispered. Little Myla who failed 5 years ago? Failure, I said, was the best teacher I ever had. Robert finally found his voice, though it came out strangled. You're lying. This is fraud. Securities fraud. The SEC will... Will what? I pulled out my phone, showing him a screen. Investigate the completely legal purchase of publicly traded shares through registered investment vehicles? Every transaction documented, every filing submitted on time? 51%, someone whispered. She owns 51% of Mitchell Industries. The board members were frantically checking their phones, calling their brokers, trying to verify what seemed impossible. Within seconds, the confirmation came. The murmurs turned to shouts. Robert, how did you not know about this? Board member Harrison demanded. The shares were distributed across 40 different entities, I explained calmly, each under the reporting threshold. It's called a creeping takeover, completely legal, thoroughly executed. When? Robert's voice was hollow. When did you start? 3 years ago. Right after Aunt Karen announced to everyone at Christmas that I was a cautionary tale and shouldn't be invited to family events anymore. Karen swayed on her feet. Margaret caught her arm, steadying her. But the capital, Henderson said, his analytical mind working through the implications. Where did you get the capital? You were bankrupt. I was. Then I wasn't. Turns out, when you lose everything, you learn to see opportunities others miss. Distressed assets, overlooked companies, inefficient operations, like Mitchell Industries, bloated management, declining innovation, coasting on reputation. Our stock is up 12% this year, Robert protested. Because Apex has been buying, I said simply. We stopped last month. Check tomorrow's price. The threat hung in the air. Without Apex's support, Mitchell Industries would crater. Everyone in the room knew it. The company had been artificially propped up by its own hidden enemy. Marcus had been standing at the microphone watching the chaos with barely concealed satisfaction. Now he walked through the crowd, past the board members, past the investors, past Karen and Robert, who stood frozen in horror. He stopped directly in front of me. The entire room held its breath. Then, deliberately, Marcus Sterling, the Marcus Sterling who commanded 3,000 employees and managed billions in assets, wrapped his arms around me in a warm professional embrace. Ready to decide who gets fired today, boss? The words echoed through the ballroom's perfect acoustics. Boss. Not Ms. Underwood, not even Myla. Boss. The sound that came from Karen's throat was inhuman. Robert's legs actually gave out. He had to catch himself on a nearby table. The Hendersons, who'd invested $30 million in Mitchell Industries, looked like they'd been shot. Boss? Someone squeaked. Marcus turned to face the room, standing beside me like a lieutenant. Ms. Underwood owns Sterling Industries as of tonight, which means she controls Sterling's partnerships, including our contracts with Mitchell Industries. Contracts that represent 12% of our revenue, Robert whispered. Plus the 40% that comes from companies Apex controls indirectly, I added. Phoenix Development, Evergreen Logistics, Harbor Tech Solutions, all of them have contracts with you. All of them now answer to me. Emma started clapping. Alone at first, the sound sharp in the silence. Then Dad joined her, then Marcus, then surprisingly, a few Mitchell Industries employees who'd suffered under Robert's arrogant leadership. Stop! Karen screamed. Stop clapping! This is corporate terrorism. No, I said quietly. This is business. The same kind of business you and Robert have practiced for years. Crushing smaller companies, destroying competitors, stepping on anyone you deemed beneath you. The only difference is, this time, you're the ones beneath. The ballroom erupted into complete chaos. Karen's champagne glass slipped from her nerveless fingers, shattering on the marble floor with a crystalline crash that seemed to break whatever spell had held everyone frozen. This can't be legal, Robert shouted, his face purple with rage and humiliation. You were in our offices. You were spying. I was cleaning, I corrected. With a legitimate contract your company signed. Not my fault you never bothered to see who was pushing the vacuum. Phones were out everywhere. The financial reporters were typing furiously, some already doing live broadcasts. Breaking news from the Mitchell family reunion, hostile takeover revealed. Board member Harrison was on his phone with legal. Get the entire team here now. I don't care if it's Saturday night. The Hendersons were backing toward the exit, Mrs. Henderson clutching her pearls. We're ruined. $30 million. You're not ruined, I said, loud enough for them to hear. Your investment is safe. Mitchell Industries will survive. It'll just be under new management. You can't fire us. Robert stepped forward aggressively. Marcus moved to intercept, but I held up a hand. I can't? I pulled out my phone, showing him the corporate bylaws. Controlling shareholder rights, Section 12. I can call an emergency board meeting anytime. I can replace the entire C-suite with 24 hours notice. Karen had started crying, her perfect makeup running in black streams. Myla, please, we're family. Family? I looked at her steadily. Was I family when you told everyone I was toxic? When you literally hid me in the kitchen tonight because you were ashamed of me? The crowd was pressing closer, everyone wanting to hear. The young server from the kitchen had somehow made it into the ballroom, still recording everything. I moved to the center of the room where everyone could see me clearly. The clean tech uniform that had so horrified Karen now seemed like armor, a symbol of everything they'd missed. 5 years ago, I lost everything, I said, my voice calm and clear. My company failed, I was $2 million in debt, and this family threw me away like garbage. Aunt Karen called me a cautionary tale. Uncle Robert called me toxic. You all decided I was worthless. The room was silent except for the sound of Karen's muffled sobs. So I disappeared, took 3 jobs, worked 18-hour days, learned from my mistakes. A mentor saw potential in me that my own family couldn't. We built Apex Capital from nothing. $5 million to start, now worth over $800 million. Gasps rippled through the crowd. $800 million. More than Mitchell Industries and Sterling combined. This uniform? I gestured to the CleanTech logo. This was strategy. While you were looking down on service workers, I was gathering intelligence. Every board meeting, every private conversation, every careless document left on a conference table. You taught me that appearances matter more than substance. So I became invisible. But why? Robert's voice was broken. Why destroy us? I'm not destroying you. I'm restructuring you. The same way you've restructured dozens of smaller companies over the years. The difference is, I'm going to do it better, more efficiently, more ethically. Marcus stepped forward with another document. The transition plan is already in place. New leadership, new direction, new culture. Mitchell Industries will be more profitable within 6 months. Without us, Karen whispered. I shrugged off the clean tech jacket, revealing an elegantly tailored vest underneath. The same style I'd worn as a CEO 5 years ago. That remains to be seen. Marcus connected his laptop to the ballroom's presentation system. The massive screen behind the stage lit up with the Apex Capital logo, a clean, modern design that somehow looked both elegant and predatory. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus announced, allow me to present the full Apex Capital portfolio. The slide changed. 15 company logos appeared, each with their valuation. Several guests gasped as they recognized names, companies they did business with, companies they respected, companies they never imagined were connected. Combined value, $840 million, Marcus continued. All built in 5 years. All under the leadership of Ms. Myla Underwood. This has to be fake, Robert said desperately. Check the records. Someone check the SEC filings. Harrison was already on it, his legal team sending him real-time verification. His face went pale as he read. It's all legitimate. Every filing, every transaction. My God, Robert, she owns us. I reached into my pocket again and pulled out the executive badge, holding it up to the light. The holographic seal shifted, revealing embedded security features that couldn't be faked. This badge opens every door in every Apex building, I said. It represents 5 years of 16-hour days of studying every mistake, of turning failure into fuel. While you were gossiping about my downfall, I was engineering yours. The Singapore expansion, someone called out. Mitchell lost 40%. Was that? Apex competed for that contract, I confirmed. We won by offering better terms and superior logistics through Evergreen. You lost because Robert was too arrogant to modernize your proposal. Margaret, still supporting Karen, spoke up shakily. The Newport merger that fell through. Phoenix Development outbid you. My company. Every major loss Mitchell Industries has taken in the last 2 years, Apex was on the other side. The revelation was too much for Karen. She pulled away from Margaret and actually dropped to her knees in front of me, her silver dress pooling around her on the marble floor. The sight of the always proud Karen Mitchell kneeling was so shocking that several people gasped. Myla, sweetheart, please, she sobbed, reaching for my hands. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. We were wrong. I stepped back, avoiding her grasp. You're sorry now, because I have power. Where was this apology when I was struggling? I was scared, she cried. I was scared of losing everything we'd built. The shame, the embarrassment. I took it out on you. But we're family. Family forgives. Robert tried a different approach, extending his hand for a handshake like we were closing a business deal. Myla, let's discuss this rationally. Whatever you're planning, we can work together. Keep it in the family. Keep it in the family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Like when you kept me out of family events? When you told your investor friends I was no longer a Mitchell concern? That was a mistake, Robert said quickly. We see that now. You've proven yourself. You're brilliant, successful. Everything we always knew you could be. Everything you knew I could be? I repeated slowly. 5 hours ago, you called me a toilet cleaner. 60 minutes ago, your wife ordered me to hide in the kitchen, and now suddenly I'm brilliant? Emma stepped forward. They only respect power, Myla. You know that. They always have. Dad, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. Just tell them what you want, sweetheart. Make it clear. I walked to the microphone, my footsteps echoing in the now silent ballroom. 200 of Seattle's most powerful people waited for my next words, like their lives depended on it. For some, their livelihoods actually did. I have 3 announcements, I said clearly. First, Mitchell Industries will undergo complete restructuring starting Monday. Every position from C-suite to entry level will be reevaluated based on merit, not nepotism. Board members exchanged panicked glances. Half of them were Robert's golf buddies or Karen's society connections. Second, new leadership will be appointed within 30 days. The selection process will be transparent, fair, and focused solely on competence. Current executives may apply, but they'll compete against external candidates. "You can't do this," Robert shouted. "I built that company." "You inherited it from your father," I corrected. "And you've been coasting on his reputation for 20 years while better companies passed you by." I paused, letting that sink in. Third, and this is non-negotiable, Mitchell Industries will implement new policies on workplace respect, fair treatment, and ethical business practices. Any employee, regardless of position, who violates these policies will be terminated immediately. "What about us?" Karen asked from her knees. "What about Robert and me?" "You have 30 days to prove you deserve to stay. Robert, you'll be evaluated for a position appropriate to your actual skills, likely regional manager, not CEO. Karen, your marketing experience might qualify you for a department role, not executive level." "That's a 70% pay cut," Robert protested. "It's what you're actually worth based on performance metrics," I said. "The same metrics you've used to fire hundreds of employees over the years. Funny how different it feels when you're on the receiving end." "If you want to remain at Mitchell Industries," I continued, "here are my conditions. 1. You'll undergo the same performance review as every other employee. No special treatment, no family privileges." Karen finally struggled to her feet, Margaret helping her. "That's fair," she whispered. 2. You'll participate in leadership training, including modules on workplace respect and ethical management. The same training you've been too busy to attend for the past 5 years. Several employees in the crowd actually applauded. Robert's face darkened as he realized how many people he'd alienated over the years. 3. You'll work under the new leadership team, whoever they may be. If that means reporting to someone 20 years younger, someone you once dismissed as unqualified, you'll do it with professionalism and grace. "And if we refuse?" Robert asked. "Then you'll receive the standard severance package, 2 weeks' pay and COBRA benefits. The same package you gave Jennifer Walsh when you fired her for being pregnant, the same one you gave Tom Chen when you replaced him with your golf buddy's son." The crowd stirred. Those names meant something to the Mitchell Industries employees present. Marcus stepped forward. "For what it's worth, the transition team Apex has assembled is excellent. They've successfully restructured 12 companies, all of which are now thriving. Mitchell Industries could come out of this stronger than ever." "This isn't about destruction," I added. "It's about accountability. For too long, this company has operated on connections rather than competence, on appearance rather than substance. That ends now." "It's business, not personal," Robert said bitterly, throwing my earlier words back at me. "No, Robert, it's both. Business should be personal. Every employee you thoughtlessly fired, every small company you crushed, those were personal to someone. Now you get to learn what that feels like." The crowd parted as Emma ran toward me, her heels clicking rapidly on the marble. She threw her arms around me in a fierce hug, not caring that hundreds of people were watching. "I knew it," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I knew you were planning something big. The way you paid off my student loans, the mysterious job offers I kept getting from Apex subsidiaries. That was all you, wasn't it?" I hugged her back. "You earned those offers on your own merit. I just made sure the right people saw your resume." Dad joined us, his eyes shining with pride. He'd worn his best suit tonight, the one from my college graduation. That's my girl, he said simply, pulling both of us into his arms. I never doubted you for a second. The contrast was stark. Our small family unit embracing while Karen and Robert stood isolated, their usual crowd of sycophants having melted away. There's one more thing, I said, pulling back from the hug. Emma, Apex Capital needs a new CFO for Mitchell Industries. Someone with fresh ideas, strong ethics, and actual financial expertise. Interested? Emma's jaw dropped. Are you serious? Your record speaks for itself. Top of your class at medical school, but you minored in business. You've been managing the hospital's budget committee for 2 years. You're qualified. But she's 28, Karen protested weakly. She has no experience running a major corporation. Neither did Robert when his daddy handed him the company at 32, I pointed out. At least Emma earned her position through merit, not birth. The crowd was buzzing with excitement now. This wasn't just corporate revenge, it was a changing of the guard, a generational shift in power. The immediate aftermath was swift and brutal. Within minutes of my announcement, phones started ringing throughout the ballroom. The financial reporters were already filing stories. Social media exploded with videos from the kitchen confrontation and the ballroom revelation. Mitchell Industries stock will tank on Monday, Henderson said, frantically typing on his phone. We need to minimize damage. Actually, Marcus interjected, Apex will be announcing a major investment in Mitchell Industries first thing Monday morning, $100 million in new capital for modernization and expansion. The stock will likely rise. But only if the restructuring goes smoothly, I added, which means current leadership needs to cooperate fully with the transition. 3 board members had already approached me quietly, distancing themselves from Robert. We've had concerns about leadership for years, Harrison whispered, but Robert had too much control. Not anymore, I said simply. Karen and Robert stood abandoned in the middle of the ballroom, watching their carefully constructed world crumble. The investors they'd courted were now approaching me. The employees they'd terrorized were openly celebrating. The society friends they'd tried to impress were already gossiping about their downfall. My reputation, Karen moaned. 40 years of building our social standing. Your reputation was built on looking down on others, I said. On hiding family members who didn't meet your standards. On caring more about appearances than people. Maybe it's time to build something real instead. Robert's phone rang. He answered it, his face going even paler. That was Coleman. He's pulling out of the Riverside project. Says he can't work with unstable leadership. Coleman Construction? I asked. Don't worry. Phoenix Development just bought them yesterday. The Riverside project will proceed, just under new management. Yours, if you earn it. Karen approached me as the crowd began to disperse, her makeup destroyed, her perfect facade completely shattered. Can we talk? Privately? I nodded, leading her to a quiet corner. The woman who'd dragged me to the kitchen 2 hours ago now followed meekly behind. Why? She asked, her voice small. Why did you do it this way? The public humiliation? You mean like the public humiliation of being called toxic at Christmas dinner? Or being dragged to the kitchen tonight because you were ashamed of me? She flinched. I deserved that. But Robert, the employees? The employees are celebrating, Karen. Haven't you noticed? They're happy Robert's being removed. What does that tell you about the culture you two created? She was quiet for a moment. I was so focused on success, on image. When you failed, it felt like our family's reputation was crumbling. I panicked. I lashed out. You didn't just lash out. You systematically excluded me, poisoned others against me, tried to erase me from the family narrative. I know. Tears ran down her cheeks, real this time, not the theatrical sobs from earlier. I told myself I was protecting the family legacy, but really I was just terrified of being associated with failure. And now you are the failure, I said, not unkindly. How does it feel? Terrible, empty, like everything I built was meaningless. She looked up at me. Is that how you felt 5 years ago? Worse. Because I didn't just lose money and status. I lost family. She nodded slowly. You're giving us a chance to stay. That's more than I gave you. I'm giving you a chance to earn your position. There's a difference. This isn't charity, Karen. It's business. This isn't just about revenge. It's about justice and second chances, even for those who don't deserve them. If you believe in earning respect through merit, not connections, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear that failure isn't the end, and type respect in the comments if you think everyone deserves to be valued for their actual worth. Now, let's see how this transformation unfolds. Monday morning came fast. The independent assessment team Apex hired was thorough, professional, and completely immune to Mitchell Industries' old politics. They interviewed every employee, reviewed 5 years of performance data, and analyzed every department's efficiency. I watched from the conference room as Robert went through his evaluation. The assessors asked him about specific decisions, strategies, failures. Without his yes men around him, without Karen feeding him lines, he floundered. The Singapore expansion failed because of market conditions, he insisted. Our analysis shows you ignored 3 separate reports warning about those exact conditions, the lead assessor responded. Can you explain why? Robert's usual bluster failed him. For maybe the first time in his professional life, he had to confront his actual limitations. Karen's evaluation went differently. When they stripped away the ego and entitlement, she actually had solid marketing instincts. Her campaigns from the early 2000s were innovative, successful. She'd just gotten lazy, relying on connections instead of creativity. Your work from 15 years ago shows real talent, the assessor told her. What changed? Karen glanced at me through the glass partition. I started believing my own hype, forgot that respect has to be earned every day. By Wednesday, the results were in. Of the 12 C-suite executives, only 3 were recommended to stay in senior positions. Robert wasn't one of them. His evaluation suggested regional sales manager, a position that required relationship building but not strategic thinking. Karen was offered marketing department director, not the CMO position she'd held, but respectable, a chance to prove herself again. These are insults, Robert raged in my office. I've been CEO for 20 years. And Mitchell Industries has declined for 15 of them, I replied. The numbers don't lie, Robert. You've been coasting on inherited success and other people's work. Friday afternoon, I called an all-hands meeting at Mitchell Industries. Every employee, from executives to mailroom staff, gathered in the auditorium. Robert and Karen sat in the front row, no longer on the stage, no longer in charge. The evaluation process is complete, I announced. New positions have been determined based solely on merit, performance, and potential. I displayed the new organizational chart on the screen. Gasps rippled through the room. Jennifer Walsh, whom Robert had fired for being pregnant, was the new VP of Operations, recruited back with full back pay. Tom Chen's son, a brilliant strategist Robert had dismissed as too young, would lead business development. Robert Mitchell, you've been offered the position of Regional Sales Manager, Pacific Northwest Territory. Salary, $150,000. His face went purple. That's 70% less than what you paid yourself while the company declined? Yes. It's also 50% more than the role typically pays. Consider it recognition of your experience. Karen Mitchell, Director of Marketing, $175,000. Your evaluation showed genuine talent that's been underutilized. This is your chance to prove you're more than just connections. Karen nodded slowly, accepting the verdict with more grace than her husband. For those wondering about severance alternatives, standard packages are available. 2 weeks' pay, continued benefits for 60 days. Your choice. Emma stepped onto the stage beside me, looking professional in her new suit. As the incoming CFO, I want everyone to know that these changes aren't about punishment. They're about building a company where everyone is valued for their actual contributions. The room erupted in applause, not for the fallen executives, but for the promise of real change. Employees who'd been overlooked for years were finally seeing opportunity. The family response was predictably divided. Within days, I received calls, texts, and emails from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Cousin Patricia, who'd whispered behind her hands at the reunion, suddenly wanted to have lunch. "I always knew you were special," she gushed over the phone. "I told everyone you'd bounce back." "Really?" I asked. "Because I have a recording of you at last year's Christmas party saying I was an embarrassment to the Mitchell name." She hung up. Uncle James, Robert's brother, was more direct. "You've destroyed everything our father built," he said when he cornered me at Dad's house. "The Mitchell legacy is ruined." "The Mitchell legacy was built on exploitation and nepotism," I replied. "I'm giving it a chance to become something better." But not everyone was hostile. Younger cousins reached out with genuine congratulations. Aunt Sarah, Karen's estranged sister, sent a beautiful letter. Karen needed this wake-up call. Maybe now she'll remember what actually matters. Dad became my fiercest defender at family gatherings. "My daughter did what none of you had the courage to do," he told Uncle James. "She built something real from nothing. While you all were gossiping about her failure, she was succeeding beyond your wildest dreams." Emma reported that the hospital staff were in awe. "My attending literally asked if you were hiring," she laughed. "Apparently, taking down corporate bullies is very attractive to overworked residents." The family WhatsApp group, which had excluded me for 5 years, suddenly added me back. I left immediately. Some bridges weren't worth rebuilding. "They only want you now because you have power," Emma warned. "I know," I said. "But at least now they can't pretend I don't exist." 2 weeks into the transition, I held another company-wide meeting. This time, the energy was completely different. Hope had replaced fear. Excitement had replaced resignation. "I want to address the elephant in the room," I began. "Many of you are wondering if this is just another corporate takeover where promises get broken and people get hurt." Nods throughout the auditorium. "Let me be clear. Apex Capital isn't here to strip Mitchell Industries and sell it for parts. We're here to build something sustainable. Every single person in this room has value. Your ideas matter. Your contributions will be recognized." I pulled up a new slide. "Effective immediately. 20% raise for all employees below management level. Performance bonuses reinstated. Comprehensive health care including mental health coverage. Parental leave extended to 6 months." The room erupted. People were crying, hugging, cheering. These were benefits Robert had cut to maintain profitability while paying himself millions. But with benefits come expectations. Harassment of any kind, zero tolerance. Discrimination, immediate termination. Treating service staff, whether janitors or CEOs, with disrespect, you're gone. "What about the clean tech employees?" someone asked. "The ones who clean our offices?" 15% raise, full benefits, and profit sharing. They're part of our ecosystem. We succeed together or not at all. An older employee raised his hand. "Ms. Underwood, I've worked here 30 years. This is the first time leadership has ever addressed us directly about anything other than cutbacks. Why?" "Because I've been where you are. Overlooked, undervalued, invisible. I know what it's like to have your worth determined by someone who doesn't even know your name. That culture dies today." Robert, sitting in the back in his new position, looked uncomfortable. Good. He needed to hear how his employees really felt. After the meeting, Marcus and I sat in what used to be Robert's office. I'd already had his gaudy furniture removed, replacing it with simple, functional pieces. The wall of vanity photos was gone, replaced with a whiteboard full of strategic plans. "You know, I've been watching you for 3 years," Marcus said, settling into a chair. "Ever since William told me about his protege." "William talks too much," I said, but I was smiling. "He saw something special in you. Not just the hunger for success, but the discipline to wield power responsibly." He paused. "The way you handled tonight, offering them a chance instead of complete destruction, that takes strength." "Or weakness," I countered. Some would say I should have crushed them completely. Those people don't understand sustainable success. You could have destroyed Mitchell Industries, sold it for parts, made a quick profit. Instead, you're building something lasting. That's the difference between revenge and justice. Karen asked me why I did it publicly, why I humiliated them. And? Because private consequences don't change public behavior. They needed their peers to see them fall. Otherwise, they'd just spin it as a strategic decision, maintain their facade. Marcus nodded. The cleanest cut is public, no room for denial or revision. There's something else, he continued. The way you used the clean tech cover, brilliant. But also telling. You could have revealed yourself any time in the past year. Why wait? I thought about it. I needed to be sure, not just about the business moves, but about myself, whether I was doing this for the right reasons. And? I'm still not entirely sure. But seeing those employees' faces today, knowing they finally have hope, that feels right. 1 month into the new structure, the transformation was remarkable. Mitchell Industries' stock had risen 15%. Employee satisfaction scores hit record highs. 3 major contracts that had been stalling suddenly closed. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant knocked. Ms. Underwood, you have an email marked urgent from Karen Mitchell. I opened it, expecting complaints or demands. Instead, Myla, I've spent 30 days doing the work I should have done 30 years ago. Looking at actual metrics, talking to real customers, understanding our frontline employees. I was so disconnected from reality, living in a bubble of privilege and assumption. You were right. I had talent once. I'd just forgotten what it felt like to earn respect rather than demand it. These past weeks, working under Jennifer, whom Robert fired and you rehired, have been humbling and educational. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm just letting you know that I understand now. Success without substance is just elaborate failure. Also, Robert has decided to take the severance package. He can't adapt to not being in charge. I'm staying. I want to prove I'm more than my worst moments. Your aunt, if you'll still have me, Karen, Emma read it over my shoulder. Do you believe her? I believe she's trying. That's more than she gave me 5 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. Karen, who'd valued appearance above all, was finally doing real work. Robert, who'd preached about merit while practicing nepotism, couldn't handle actual meritocracy. The company newsletter wants to do a feature on the turnaround, Emma said. What should I tell them? Tell them it's not a turnaround, it's a correction. Mitchell Industries is finally becoming what it always claimed to be. Christmas came 6 months after the reunion that changed everything. Dad insisted on hosting, despite my offer to rent a venue. Family gatherings should feel like family, he said firmly. The guest list was notably smaller. Robert had moved to Arizona, claiming he needed to explore new opportunities, but really just running from his embarrassment. Several fair-weather relatives had distanced themselves, uncomfortable with the power shift, but the people who came were real. Aunt Sarah, Karen's sister, brought homemade cookies instead of expensive wine. Younger cousins brought their kids, who ran around freely without being scolded for not being presentable. Karen arrived last, carrying a simple gift bag instead of her usual ostentatious packages. She looked different, less makeup, simpler clothes, but somehow more present. Myla, she said quietly when she found me in the kitchen. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. It's Dad's house. Of course I came. That's not what I meant. She paused. Thank you for giving me a chance to earn my place back. In the company and the family. How's the marketing department? Thriving. We landed the Boeing contract last week. The team, my team, they're brilliant. I just had to stop talking long enough to listen to them. Emma burst in, laughing. You have to see this. Dad's teaching Marcus's kids how to play poker. We looked through the doorway. Marcus had brought his family, and Dad was seriously explaining poker faces to a 6-year-old. The scene was chaotic, warm, real. Everything our family gatherings hadn't been for years. This is better, Karen said softly. Smaller, but better. Family isn't about size, I replied. It's about showing up for each other, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. After dinner, the younger cousins gathered around, their kids listening with wide eyes. Patricia's daughter, Sophie, only 16, asked the question everyone was thinking. Aunt Myla, how did you go from losing everything to this? I looked at the eager faces. These kids had grown up hearing two versions of my story: the cautionary tale their parents told and the triumph they'd witnessed. I learned that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a requirement for it. Every mistake taught me something essential. But weren't you angry? Sophie's brother asked. When everyone turned their backs on you? Furious. But anger alone doesn't build anything. It just burns. I had to transform it into fuel, into focus. Little Jamie, only 8, piped up. Mom said you clean buildings. But you're also the boss? Karen shifted uncomfortably, but I smiled. I own companies that clean buildings, yes. And you know what? Those cleaning people are just as important as any CEO. They keep businesses running, keep people healthy, deserve just as much respect. More respect than they usually get, Emma added. The point is, I continued, never judge someone by their uniform, their job title, or their current situation. The person serving your coffee might be building an empire, the janitor might be a genius, and the CEO might be completely incompetent. Sophie glanced at her mother, who was studying her wine glass intently. But the most important lesson? I looked at each young face. When you have power, use it to lift others up, not tear them down. Success means nothing if you achieve it by stepping on people who can't fight back. Is that why you gave Aunt Karen another chance? Sophie asked boldly. Everyone deserves a chance to be better than their worst moment, even the people who didn't give you that same chance. As the evening wound down, Karen helped me clean up, something she'd never done before. We worked in comfortable silence until she finally spoke. I need to know something. Do you forgive me? I dried my hands slowly, considering. I forgive the person you're becoming. The person you were? That's harder. Fair, she nodded. What about boundaries? Where do we go from here? We're colleagues first, family second. At work, you report to Jennifer. No special treatment, no inside information, no leveraging our relationship. And outside work? We can be family, but on new terms. No more hiding people in kitchens, no more judging worth by net worth, no more sacrificing relationships for reputation. I can live with that. She paused. Robert can't. He's filed for divorce. I wasn't surprised. Robert's identity was so tied to being CEO that without it, his marriage had nothing to stand on. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. Don't be. We were a power couple, not a real couple. When the power shifted, we had nothing left. She looked at me directly. You taught me that. When everything external was stripped away, I had to face who I really was. Robert couldn't do that. Dad joined us, putting an arm around each of us. My girls, he said simply. Both of you. Finding your way back to what matters. I'm 52 years old, Uncle James, Karen laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. Hardly a girl. You're never too old to grow, he replied. Myla proved that. You're proving it now. As they hugged, I realized this was what I'd actually wanted all along. Not revenge, not humiliation, but transformation. The chance for all of us to become better than we'd been. A year after that fateful reunion, I stood in the same Ritz-Carlton ballroom. This time, it was Mitchell Industries' centennial celebration. The same crystal chandeliers, the same marble floors, but everything else had changed. Employees mingled freely with executives. The clean tech staff were invited as guests, not workers. Jennifer Walsh, now president, gave a speech about resilience and second chances. Emma presented financial results that made the board members weep with joy. Profitable, sustainable, ethical growth. Karen, in her marketing director role, had orchestrated the event. Simple, elegant, inclusive. No pretension, just celebration. She found me on the balcony, looking out over the Seattle skyline. "Thinking about that night?" she asked. "Thinking about all of it. The failure, the rebuilding, the revelation. Sometimes it feels like a dream. For me too, but for different reasons." She stood beside me. "I spent so many years building walls, maintaining facades. You tore them all down in one night. And? And I'm grateful. I would never have changed otherwise. I'd have died a bitter, shallow woman surrounded by people who feared me but never loved me." Marcus joined us, raising his champagne. "To creative destruction." "To second chances," Karen countered. "To earning your place," I added. We clinked glasses as the Seattle lights twinkled below. 5 years ago, I'd lost everything. But that loss had been the greatest gift. It taught me the difference between surface and substance, between given power and earned respect. The uniform that had horrified my family now hung framed in my office, a reminder that dignity doesn't come from what you wear or what others think. It comes from knowing your worth and making others earn the right to judge it. Sometimes you have to fall all the way down to learn how high you can really fly. Thank you for joining me on this journey from humiliation to vindication. If you've ever been underestimated, remember, your comeback is your responsibility, but their apology is optional. Like this video if you believe in earning respect through merit. Subscribe for more stories of triumph over adversity. And comment, never give up, if you're building your own comeback story. Remember, the best revenge is massive success coupled with grace. Until next time.